Some say it's about the people. Others argue the natural beat comes from the music. Or maybe it's in the food or the fashion that they put on. Confusion comes when they look into the animals. Small and big, they come in all sizes. All that claim citizenry. The big five that many travel across the globe to see. The birds that add color and flavor to the skies. Not to speak about the vast landscape, the untapped forests and natural resources, the waterways that lead to the sandy beaches, all God-given from above. We call it home, is the beauty of Africa.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Baobab Chats. Today we are discussing adulting once again because we know that this topic really catches each and every single person on this planet very unexpectedly. But today we are going to be talking about managing bills. And who better to get this information from people who are currently learning how to do these things? So we are young adults. We are gathering here today, and we're going to be sharing some information and tips, and also just having an open discussion about bills. So before I go on into the show, I just want to introduce my wonderful panelists to you all. We have Daniel, we have Divine, and we have Farai. And I'm going to hand over to them so that they can introduce themselves to us. So I'm going to start with you, Daniel. Please introduce yourself to us. Okay, I think Daniel is having some technical difficulty. Daniel, we will come back to you just now. Divine, please have the honors.
Hi, everybody. My name is Divine. You can call me Divine Karen. I do quite a lot of things. I'm a postgraduate student at the University of Pretoria in South Africa. I am also a writer, a poet. I own my own custom writing service provider company called the Psalms of Karen. I am also trying to expand my streams of income by doing voice recording, audios, and all sorts of things.
Thank you so much, Divine. Farai, over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Farai Masiakurima. I am based in Armidale, New South Wales, in Australia. And I currently work as an auditor, recent graduate, and adulting, learning about this big world, and also currently working on a startup.
Thank you. And now over to you, Daniel.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Daniel Adekunle from Nigeria, Lagos to be precise. So I love to write, I love to speak, I love to interact with people, and currently I work with a financial technology firm as a compliance specialist. I've also worked in a financial institution. Finance is something I'm very passionate about and enthusiastic, and really eager to talk about this pressing subject today. So thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. And I'm your host, Stefy Jagger. Guys, yes, this topic, man. I believe that adulting is something that catches all of us off guard. We think that we are prepared for this thing after school and after varsity, but once you actually get into it and actually start experiencing it, oh man, oh man, oh man, like bills, responsibilities, things just jump up at you. But today we want to talk about bills, paying bills, getting bills, debit orders, saving, all of these type of things, because I don't really think that a lot of us as young adults discuss these issues. And it would actually really help for us to actually just open up this discussion and have people just come in and learn from each other, assist each other as well. So now I'm going to hand over to our first question for today, which is a really pressing one, and it's, how do we manage our finances? Now, this question is open to anyone and everyone. You can speak from a personal experience or maybe just something you've just noticed. But how is it that you do manage your bills? And is there any specific structure that you think that we can follow? I'll start with you, Farai.
Well, I have had so many different ways of managing bills, and each way has kind of depended on my situation. So when I was a student, there was a different way of handling money, and then now after finishing and having this sudden freedom, there's a different way of handling money. But what I found is when I was a student, budgeting was the best way to go, and I guess because I couldn't work and I was studying and trying to work at the same time. I kind of had limited funds, so I kind of had to work with what I had. But now that I'm kind of free to spend on a number of things, I don't have a family of my own, so I'm not married, so I kind of have that freedom. And I've just found that things like direct debits, where they take money out on my payday, help a lot because I'm very forgetful. I prefer I prefer it when they deduct the money, and then when I see my bank account, I'm like, oh, okay, this is what I have to work with, and I know that, oh, my bills have been paid. But that's not all the bills. So far I found that direct debits are my best friend, and also having two separate bank accounts. So one bank account for emergency funds, and then one bank account for the rest of the things. So I usually put money for food in one account, and then I manage how I spend that money each week. In fact, I sometimes put a certain amount of money that I need to use for that week in that account, and then take out everything. And then once that's done, once that's zero, I know that there's nothing else I can spend it on. I mean, there's no other way to go about it. I just have to use what's left. And then after the next week, then I add the other bit of money, and then keep going that way. So far, that's how I've been doing it. I don't know if it's a perfect, effective way, but so far it's working.
I can agree. Like, I think I was actually the same. I love them to debit my account because I become very forgetful as well. So yes, over to you, Daniel.
Yeah. So first of all, I would like to start by saying resources are scarce. They have been. They always will be. There was once a time when while I was in school and I was very financially stranded, I would look forward to the days when I started earning some income. I believe that I'll be able to make more choices, and I'll have more money to spend. But then you get into that phase, get into the adult phase of life, and you find out that there's no amount of income that you earn that seems to be enough for the responsibilities and the bills you have to pay. So I think we have to have it at the back of our minds that that time when you have everything you need, everything you want and desire, that time may not necessarily come. So you have to make do with what you have. And that's been the mindset that has helped me to manage my finances since I started working. First of all, I realized that I'm not going to be able to have everything I want every single time I want it. So I have to prioritize, make sure that the most important things come first, and then other things can be handled in the future. So I feel that importantly, every single person must come to terms with this fact that resources are going to be limited in one way or the other, and we have to find a way to manage what we have and stay happy all the same. So that's what I would say has really been an important factor for me as a person.
Mm.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I think having to set aside and have a budget for everything that our money has to be accounted to is something that is very, very important. I don't know if everybody takes it as seriously, but I know growing up, my parents would always tell me, have a budget, even just with your pocket money. Start having a budget for things so that you know where your money is going to, so that you can also handle your finances like that. Divine, the floor is yours.
So personally, they've said the majority of what I actually wanted to express, but I just wanted to add on and just emphasize on the importance of having a support structure, or should I say, someone, an accountability partner who is going to remind you of the responsibilities that you need to take with your finances. This is why financial advisors are very important, and it's important to find a financial advisor that you can trust, that you have a relationship with, not necessarily based on blood, but the kind of financial relationship where they hold you accountable to your money decisions. Because if you're not accountable for your money decisions, you might actually fall in the trap of debt. You might actually fall in the trap of of never having enough to take care of your needs and also your wants personally. So that is all I wanted to add, aside from budgeting and finding different streams of income.
Thank you. Yes, I actually kind of agree with that. I think a lot of us get very touchy when it comes to our finances because we don't want people to help us or to basically hold us accountable to our money because we believe this is my money. I worked hard to earn this. So how can someone else come and hold me accountable for what I am earning? But I think that is something we need to open ourselves up to because to be honest, some of us we become reckless. I mean, that first paycheck you get from your first job, I mean, it's money you've never had before. You are finally feeling like you're an adult. You finally are, I wouldn't necessarily say financially free, but now you have something of your own. And I think that sometimes when we get into that realm, we need to get out of it again and remind ourselves that, hey, I need to be disciplined because now it's not just about me just spending my money for myself, but now there's everything else that I have to obligate it to. Like there's transport fees that has to be paid, there's maybe like groceries and stuff at home that has to be bought, maybe there's rent that has to be paid. So with our money, especially as young adults within our prime of our career, how do we prioritize our financial obligations, especially within this difficult financial times? We are living in extremely financial times right now, but how is it that we should prioritize our financial obligations? Farai, would you like to start? I think, okay, we lost Farai there, but she'll be back. Divine, I'll hand over this question to you.
So personally, I will use my own story to answer this question. I am the type of female that actually looks at what I need from what I want at first hand. Yes, there's a bunch of things that I desire, a bunch of luxuries that I wish I was exposed to. But looking at the context within which we find ourselves, it's important to start with what you need first. What is significant for the time you're in, basically? What is it that you need to focus on? What is linked to your careers? What is linked to what is most important in your life? So personally, I would say prioritize your needs over your wants, and don't be afraid to sacrifice certain pleasures in order to gain the latter benefits of having more. Yes, so that's basically all that I would have to say.
And you, Daniel?
Okay, yes. So traditionally, you would expect that at the beginning of a month, or let's say when you receive your income, you're supposed to draw a budget, or we can call it a scale of preference. And this scale of preference is supposed to identify your needs, your wants, however we choose to put it now, in order of importance. Of course, what's important to me may not be important to Divine, may not be important to Farai at this point in time. And so you cannot afford to use other people's, means of prioritization. You cannot compare yourself with others when it comes to managing your bills. You have to consider yourself first, what is important to you at this point in time, and is also, of course, within your means. So that's the first thing. You have to have a scale of preference. You have to know what is most important, what is least important, what is time bound, because that's another factor. There's some things that you may need to settle within a given space of time. So you have to consider that as well. And I would also like to add that sometimes all you need to think about is survival. Sometimes you have to consider, okay, what I have now, is it going to be enough for me to survive until the next income will come? Okay, it's not everyone listening to us right now that probably has a lot to put aside or to save. So you have to just consider, okay, what is, let's, at the very minimum, at the very basic level, what is going to be enough for me to live a standard life, at least a reasonable life between now and the next income or the next payday. So that's also very important. So you need to address the necessities, the basics, the food, clothing, and all of that before you begin to think of other things. So I think that that really helps, and it has worked for me a lot.
Mm. No, I agree with you. And I think maybe that's why also having a budget is extremely important so that you can prioritize on your financial obligations. Like you put the most important thing at the top and you make sure that you pay each and every single thing that you are obligated to. And then the lump sum that you have at the end, do not look at that like party money, like I'm gonna go all out right now. We're gonna get lit with this money. No. And I think this is why we also need a lot of people who can advise us on this. Like we like to look at our parents and be like, oh no man, they're just trying to take the fun away from me. They're not trying to understand that I'm having freedom right now. And we need people like that to tell us like, hey, budget. Oh hey, save money. Put this
That's true.
aside, invest in that. That is very, very important. And I think a lot of us only learn that later on in our lives once we have burnt our fingers a few times. But before I get into that, I also think that, in especially within these difficult times, a lot of restructuring has to happen. I know that I had to restructure in my life since COVID has hit, and it has been a dramatic change. I can't go out as much as I used to. Firstly, also because Corona, we're not trying to catch it right now. You also can't always drive around and do this and do that. Some things I had to cancel. I had to cancel gym fees. I had to cancel that. I had to cancel that. And to be honest, it was extremely tough. It was really, really tough. But some things just have to happen so that you can survive. It is not to take the fun away from you. No, it is to make sure that you are surviving at the end of the month, because the worst thing you can do is having to get yourself into a situation where you're living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. I think that's one of the most stressful things a person can do. And I think that's why also within these difficult times, maybe we also need to look at different streams of income, like not just take the one that you are getting. Also skill up yourself maybe to get more money somewhere else. I don't know how you feel about that, Farai.
Yeah, definitely agree. But before I answer that, I saw a comment that someone posted about how we seem to have it figured out. I would like to speak for myself and say I didn't figure it out. Like I so many shortcomings when it comes to budgeting and spending money properly. There'll be weeks and months where I'll be like, yes, I'll be sticking to it, and then I'll be like, no, I need to reward myself, pat on the back, spoil yourself, and then that's when I go haywire and things start to go left. So I just wanted to address that comment, and then back to yours about having an extra source of income or upskilling yourself. Yeah, definitely agree now that you can't just rely on one source of income if you want to reach certain goals. Some people are okay. They're happy to just be going to one job and getting their income and things work out fine for them. But then I feel like if you have a certain goal, if you want to buy a property, if you want to buy stocks, if you have a certain goal, for me, my goal is to one day migrate to Australia, and that costs money. And so I know that, okay, whatever happens, I have to prioritize that. It has to come, that money has to be in there, because I know, I think about my situation, I go, do I want to go back to, I don't know, I'm not gonna share my country, but do I want to, where do I want my future to go? Then I think, okay, no, this is definitely, so there's some push and pull factors that can make you want to get an extra sort of income. But I agree, it's really good to upskill, but it also requires discipline, because you can get extra income, but you upskill so you can upskill your skills, you can get your money up, and you can also increase your budget as well, so you can start spending a little bit more, because you
Mm.
really
Yeah,
are
I'm
spending money. So
yes, Daniel.
yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to quickly chip something in. The fact is, nobody has it all figured out. Even the
Yeah.
so-called the people that look very accomplished and successful, they have their low times, and of course, we are all human. I remember the first year after my first year of working, I just looked at my bank account, looked at my savings, and I was like, what? How did I spend this much money in 1 year? Sometimes you set targets for yourself and you just find out that you're not disciplined enough, or some things came up and you were unable to meet up with them. The advice I would like to give is, don't be focused on the failure, don't be focused on the mistakes you've made financially. The moment you realize that there's something you should be doing better, then start doing it better. It's sometimes, you get the feeling that, okay, I've not been able to save so much, so why don't just let me just spend off what I have, and that's not helpful. So whatever point you are, even if you have zero in your account right now, you can actually start making better financial decisions from now on. So I just want to put that out for those of us who might feel a bit discouraged about our saving culture or our financial habits so far. So I just needed to say that.
Thank you,
Steffi,
Daniel.
I
And
just
I'm
want
definitely
to
then I was
add. Oh,
gonna hand over
sorry.
to you because I know you do so much, girl, and I know there's a lot of tips that you can actually give us.
No, I just wanted to encourage everybody to have a future mindset as well. I know that we don't want to fall in the trap of, I just want to be focused on next, what's going to happen next, what am I going to eat tomorrow, what am I going to earn. But the truth is, we need to be future minded at some point, and that is what will drive our discipline. Because if you're only stuck a mentality of wanting to make yourself happy right now, you might actually miss the financial security of the future. So I just want to encourage everybody to think of tomorrow, and not just yourself, but also the generations that are coming after you. Remember that they are people that have never been exposed to financial education or financial literacy. So you could be that one person whose way of living teaches others how to manage their money better. And it starts with your habits, like Daniel and Farai had mentioned. And one of the ways in which I was able to discipline my habits is to think, what is my future going to look like if I am irresponsible with my money today?
Mm. I actually just saw a comment now, someone saying that, they started off late, with the job situation. And also, there's also something called black tax. So in South Africa, we have something called black tax. Some households are affected by it, other households aren't necessarily affected by it. But I want to know from each of you, are you affected by it, and how are you coping with that? How do you go about the black tax thing? Farai, I'll start with you.
Okay, black tax, that's a bit of a sensitive one. I think there's different levels to black tax. There's where you have absolutely no option but to send money home, or you have to be supporting your family. And then there's where it's optional and then becomes obligatory. So you keep going and going and going. So sorry, I just got distracted, but your question was?
How are you affected by black tax, and how are you also handling it?
I'd say that I've been very fortunate to not have been obligated. So I'm not under obligation to send money, but it's sort of an expectation. So I think that's what black tax is. You're not obligated, but like everyone just expects it. But I haven't necessarily seen it as a bad thing. It's just something that I've taken upon myself to say, I really want to support or help at home in a certain way. And so I contribute in that regard. But I think sometimes it gets to a toxic place where even when I can't, I end up doing it, and then I can't stop, and then people expect, and then it just becomes a cycle, and I, but I'm just really fortunate that my parents have always made it clear, and they'll continue to make it clear that if I can't, I don't have to, and I should take care of myself, because there's been so many stories of people that are abroad, or even not just abroad, but just at home, and still and just haven't had a chance to spend money, and they get to the point of passing on, and they literally didn't even enjoy the fruits of their labor. And my parents are always reiterating that as much as you love us, and as much as you like to chip in, don't feel obligated, So I've been fortunate in that regard. So it hasn't really affected me as negatively as it does for some people.
Daniel, would you like to jump onto that?
Yeah, so about black tax, you have to realize that it should be an item on your budget as well. For me, what I do is I have a maximum amount that I expect to send to family and friends and relatives. And usually what I do, and which really works for me, is let's say I'm supposed to send 20,000 in a month. Let's just use that as an hypothetical figure. I plan to send 20,000 a month for relatives and friends and all. I try to not send it all at once, because there's a sort of psychological effect that has. When you send money once, people usually expect that more will come in the future. So if I'm supposed to send you 20,000, I may first of all send you 10,000, send you another 5,000 sometime later, and that creates a kind of frequency that makes the people involved more confident in me as a person. They're like, oh, this guy always sends money. And I'm going to make sure that I try as much as possible to not exceed the budget that I've made. Of course, there are times when, emergencies come up and you have to go beyond your budget, but you have to be a little bit strict, if I can put it that way. Some people will just call you suddenly and they're like, oh, I need to settle this bill urgently. I need to do this. And of course, if you don't have, they'll probably find another alternative. But if you're always giving and giving and giving, it becomes an habit, and it may be so difficult to control in the future. So you have to, like I always say, you have to be pragmatic when it comes to, sending money to friends, family, relatives. And I like a very instructive illustration that a friend used to advise me some time ago. He said that if you have a plant and you don't allow that plant to grow until it can bring forth fruit, and you keep plucking the leaves, eventually there will be no plant to feed you anymore. So you have to realize that there are times in your life, stages in your life, where you need to invest in yourself. You need to be financially stable. You need to plan for the future. And those moments of your life, you need to try and save as much as you can. And that would limit the amount of money you can actually give out to.
Divine?
So I just wanted to, first of all, appreciate Daniel for mentioning that people get familiarized with the way you behave with money when they get in the picture. So if you're going to be all hands open all the time, don't expect them to not hold back when it's time to ask as well. So you also have to step in, or step up, if I should say, and discipline others on how far black tax goes when it also comes to prioritizing your own needs. Because, like Daniel mentioned, if you're giving so much that you have nothing for yourself, how will you help them, if you have nothing more left? So it's always important to be refueled and to acquire that stability that allows you to help others. But helping others does not mean that you have to now neglect yourself.
No, I certainly agree with that. Yes, Farai.
Yeah, no, I was going to agree 100% and say, I came to that realization quite recently as well, and said, well, if I want to help further in the future, then I definitely have to, grow the tree. I need to water the plant so that it can grow, and so that I can be able to do more. Otherwise, if I keep doing this, then it will run dry, and I won't be able to maintain the support that I want to give.
Steffi, I even wanted to Sorry. No, but I even wanted to mention that a couple of days ago, I was actually arguing with a friend who said that African entitlement is a problem in our families, where people feel entitled to know how much you're getting at work, to know like what percentage they are receiving from what you are earning, and they're not really willing to put out the work for what you are giving. They just want it. And I think that we need to be very careful to not be taken advantage of in the name of family, to also know that it took you a while to get to where you are today. And if it means that you're going to have to lovingly and respectfully say no sometimes, don't be afraid to do so. But that doesn't mean that you should also now become selfish and you disregard the needs of your family, because believe it or not, for most of us, it is our parents who have had to sacrifice so much to get us to where we are today. So it's not completely forgetting what they have done for you, but it is also, we shouldn't treat giving as a yoke upon our necks. Like, if I don't give, I am less than of a daughter, I am less than of a wife, or whatever it is you can call yourself in that family dynamic. I think it's really, really important to discipline people when it comes to black text, but obviously, again, lovingly and respectfully.
Mm.
Mhm.
No, I certainly agree. And look, I do think that sometimes we can go overboard because it is family, it is relatives, you don't want people to starve and stuff like that. But I think that maybe at some point, maybe also fit it into the budget, be like, this is how much I can send home, and instead of us just being like, okay, what are they gonna ask for now? Because sometimes there might be an amount required that you cannot afford, but you're gonna feel obligated because you're always giving to them. So I think at some point you must also be like, okay, how much am I actually willing and able to give? And you set that amount within your budget so that you don't be left at the end of the month with nothing to spare. I think if you really do want to help out and home and stuff like that, then maybe just put it into the budget. Because I think that's also something that I recently had to also come to terms with, is that we do have family members who are struggling, and sometimes I don't always need every single cent that I have, because what am I going to spend it on? I have my savings there, I have my bills paid, then there's some extra money. Do I really need to go out that much? Do I really need to get so much takeout as well? Sometimes you can spare and maybe give towards somewhere where you see there is a need. Because I also feel like sometimes we turn a blind eye to relatives that are struggling, and we just like, oh no, every man for himself. But then we forget that
Yeah.
when we are in situations, we also expect people to come to us and to help us, because at the end of the day, that is what family is for. That's what we say. We are there for each other. But I also want to talk on the subject of discipline. Discipline, discipline, discipline. We know that we get the money. It is very hard to be disciplined. I saw a comment that said, I go to my savings and I withdraw it before the month is even up. Man, do you need a lot of discipline when it comes to the saving thing? And we know how important saving is. But what type of accounts would you think that we should have? Because sometimes we have accounts that are easily accessible, and then we have accounts that are not so easily accessible. And we do know that sometimes you get rainy days and you need the money immediately, and sometimes you just need to leave it there. But what do you say about these different types of accounts, Farai?
Yeah, and I think discipline is a very big one. Like, you can have money and you can be earning it, but if you don't have discipline, it could all just go to takeout or everything else. So yeah, I definitely think that we should have people should make an emergency account. They should have an emergency fund in case you fall sick. And many of us don't think about life insurance or like things like that at this age. No one really thinks about that. But it's always good to just have some money set aside for those rainy days. And then there's so many different kinds of accounts. There's what we call term deposits, and those ones, they give you interest. And some term deposits are pretty easy to get. They'll tell you, oh, if you want to withdraw your money, you can do it immediately. And then there's some term deposits which will tell you, oh no, you can't take money until a year has passed, or 6 months has passed, or 3 months. So those ones are pretty ideal. So it's always a good idea. It just depends on your circumstance and how willing you are. to set up those accounts. But yeah, I definitely do agree. I personally myself haven't set up. I always go on the internet and I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I should probably do it. But when it comes to executing, it's very, very difficult, and I haven't gotten to that point. And like what Divine was saying, it's always good to have those accountability people that are doing the same thing that you can follow. So personally, for me in my life, I've got older friends. You know, I happen to say all my friends happen to be older than me. That's when you learn about being an adult, is like anyone who's whatever age can be your friend, not just in school where someone in your form or in your line is your friend. So I have friends that are older than me and friends that are younger. So yeah, my older friends, they're in a different life stage. They're obviously a bit more mature than I am. So they always do these things, and so they encourage me. And so I've been following it along. I can't say I've been executing everything, but still learning over time. So yeah, that's just my opinion. That's just my view. Divine?
So I don't have much to add on to that, but all I will say, the account that you decide to open will also depend on your long-term and your short-term goals. So you have to know, what are your short-term goals, what are your long-term goals, what do you want to achieve in a couple of months, in a couple of years, and that will more or less determine the accessibility you give yourself to those accounts. And accessibility doesn't mean that now you can go and lavishly spend on things that you do not need. Accessibility just means more responsibility, that you have to take more accountability for your actions. So just because now you have an account that you can come and consult every once in a while when things get difficult, doesn't mean that you should be overusing what you are keeping in there, because there could come a time when you need to even combine what is on both accounts for a very big emergency. So what's going to happen if you have nothing there? Yeah.
Definitely. Daniel, I know we did miss you there for a bit, but you are back. Thank you. We are just touching on the topic of discipline in terms of money, in terms of saving, and also in terms of the different accounts that you have in your life. How important is discipline when it comes to such things, Daniel?
Okay, first of all, apologies for my incessant going off and coming back on. I have some technical issues here. So yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, I think there's this cliche. People believe that you're supposed to spend 50% of your expenditure, of your income, on, utilities, the things you need. Is this 50, 30, 20? I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. They believe that 50% should go to your needs, to 30% to entertainment, 20% to savings. And I think that's where the issue is. And that's one of the loopholes that can bring about lack of discipline. So usually I advise that you reverse it. Try and spend 30% on the things that you want to do right now. Put the 50% in savings. And when other things start coming up, you can at least try and minimize your withdrawal from your saving. But no matter how much you withdraw, you should still be able to have a substantial amount in your savings. So I feel that the first thing you need to deal with is your mindset about your income. When you feel that, when you have the idea that the bulk of your income should be spent on consumption, eventually you find that you won't be able to sustainably put aside money for savings and other things. So first of all, you have to have a low budget for consumption and try and minimize the amount of times you withdraw. And I also think that there are on let me put it this way. There are habits that you have developed over time that tend to override whatever saving culture or discipline you're trying to practice. I was with a friend the other day, and she just told me something casually. She was like, well, we have only one life, and let's just live it. Let's just who knows who will die tomorrow, and that kind of thinking. And so it's become kind of a pattern for her to have this we could die tomorrow kind of mentality, and it makes her to not prioritize saving or investment or some other So you have to rid yourself of such mentalities. Even if you do die tomorrow, which nobody prays for, you should have something to leave to dependents and relatives, and of course there will be some expenses you will leave behind when you're gone. So you need to start identifying the habits that you have, some of the tendencies. For some people, Friday, thank God it's Friday. Yesterday was Friday, and after working all week, you're like, oh, this is the weekend, so let me just find something to cool off and relax over the weekend. And you find out that some people go to clubs, they go to bars and all that, and they end up spending more than 25% or 30% of their income for the month in just one day. So you have to start identifying the habits that erode your discipline, and you have to, like, I think it was Favor, Divine, that mentioned that. She talked about having an accountability partner, someone that keeps you in check, making sure that you don't overstep the boundaries that you've set for yourself. So identify the habits and start dealing with them. So that's what I would say on that issue.
Mhm. That is so true. Yeah. Yes,
Oh,
Farai.
can I just add just one other thing that I was thinking can influence how disciplined we can be in that social media and the kind of society that we live in, where
Yeah.
everyone is trying to live to everyone's expectations. I want everyone to think that I'm living a good life. Therefore, I'm going to buy this
Yeah.
outfit because everyone needs to see that I'm really living the life. I'm living an independent life. And yeah, we tend to live for other people, and I think for me personally, that this is one thing I'm not ashamed to say anymore. But my budget used to a big chunk of my budget used to go to eating out. Did I want to eat out? Probably not. Did I feel like eating out? No. I just wanted to post pictures so that people can see that I'm a foodie. But it didn't even make sense. So whenever someone would say, "Hey, Farai, do you want to go out?" I'd be like, "Yes, the picture would be great." But when we get there, I don't even finish the meal, or it wasn't even as great as it was. So it's just those little things. I just wanted to add that if we live for other people, if we live for social media, our budgets can be also affected. And one thing I noticed, I took a social media break at some point beginning of this year. I took, I think, 2 weeks off Instagram, and my budget actually improved because I wasn't worried about, whenever something would pop up on the internet or on the ad. I believe Facebook and Google, like they know, they literally follow you everywhere. I honestly saw a positive impact on my budget, because whenever I see something online or an advert, I'll be like, "Ah, I don't need it. Who's gonna see it?" Or like, oh, I don't need it anymore. So it makes it easier to see what you need, and I think it's also good to question yourself when you get tempted to spend money on something. Ask yourself, is it necessary? Who am I trying to impress with this? And because people will like your picture, and that's it. They'll go back to their lives, and it's you who doesn't have the money anymore. You're
Yeah.
just stuck with whatever it is that you have.
You ain't getting money for that, like, exactly. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
I literally
Yeah.
do that. I do that. I go into the store and I look at something, and it might be something I want, not necessarily need. And I'll stop and I'll ask myself, I'll have a whole discussion with myself. Do you need this? I know you want it, but do you need it right now? Can you afford it? What are you going to do with it? I have a whole list of questions I ask myself before I actually take something off the shelf. And I think I started doing this with a few of my friends as well, who would fall into that trap of just taking things and not needing it. And I'll ask them and I'll be like, do you need it? Can you
Yeah.
afford it? Are you literally going to use it? So I think it's
yeah.
also become that person who also holds people accountable. I know that people won't always see that as a positive, but later on in life, you'll see how much money you actually tend to save, and you'll actually start seeing discipline being built. But I also saw a comment that said, setting goals is very important. Yes, we can save, but how many rainy days are we going to have in adulthood? Because I think adulthood is pretty stormy for most of it. So there's always rainy days. But how important is it to actually save with a goal in mind? Divine.
Whew, that is such a a critical question that you're asking, very controversial as well. Because when I started out, so before I even started working, be it for myself or just a normal job, I didn't have goals, right? Because I always thought that mommy and daddy would be taking care of anything and they know where I'm going. So why should I worry about where I'm going? But the more you grow up, the more you realize that saving without setting goals is a waste of time. Because, first of all, what are you saving for? And what are you going to achieve at the end of this journey? So I think that goal setting is really important because it helps you to prioritize what is important for this particular period. Yeah. But I'm gonna pause there. I want to hear your personal opinion. I have so much to say, but for now I'm just gonna hold back and hear what you all have to contribute.
Daniel, what would you say?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Okay, thank you.
Yes, you can.
So, setting goals, starting out, I used to believe that you could set a goal and, the money itself could be the goal. I want to save 1 million by the end of the year. I used to have that idea that the amount of money you wanted to put together could actually be your goal. But with time, I noticed that it doesn't really work because sometimes when you're just seeing those digits in your account balance, you're like, oh, I'm rich, and before you know what's happening, you've already started spending from it. So I think you should tie your goals to something specific, something tangible, something that is visible, so that there's this satisfaction you get when you are able to achieve and accomplish those goals. Let's say, for example, you're saving for accommodation, which I think is very important as an adult. If you're starting out as an adult, you should put some money together and try and be independent. Of course, for some of us, we may never need to do that because we stay close to parents and family. But for someone like me, I had to move away from home because of work, and so you start out staying with someone, then you're looking forward to having a place of your own. So it's really fulfilling when you're able to put together the money to do that. And so like I said earlier, you have to have a specific tangible purpose for saving. Non-purposeful saving eventually is zero saving, because eventually when something comes up, it will be easy for you to dip into it. There's this idea that your goals should be smart. I think it's kind of popular. It should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. And I think it also applies to finances. You need to clarify what you want to do with the money, how much you need, and when you want to put it together. But on the matter of discipline, some thoughts came to my mind while Favor, Steffi was, sorry, I keep saying Favor, Divine, why Divine and Steffi. You look like Favor. I have a friend called Favor. Yes. So while Divine and Steffi were talking, some thoughts came to my mind about discipline, and I remember something that really works for me, and that is a cashless policy that I keep personally. Sometimes cash itself is seductive, if I can put it that way. Cash can be very tempting. If you have a
Yeah.
wad of cash in your pocket or in your purse, it's most likely you're going to spend more than you expect. So you have to, thank God, this is the world of tech. This is the world of, digital transactions and all of that. And that's what I do personally. So I kind of have benefited a lot from having the money in the bank, having it in a card, and having it somewhere. It's more difficult to assess. There are all kinds of applications, apps today, saving apps and all of that. You can save the money and lock it down somewhere. It's beyond your reach, and I think it really helps you get more disciplined with your finances. So try and practice having less cash with you, less accessible liquid money that you can easily reach. And I think it will really help you improve on your saving and spending habits. Yeah.
I actually agree with you there because when I have money in my purse, man, does that money just disappear? And that's why I think that I'm also better with just having virtual money as well, because sometimes when you do see the money, you do sometimes feel the need to spend it, like this money cannot stay here. But I also want to kind of tie that in with building a credit record, because hey, because when I was growing up, I was always told that having credit is bad. But then when I got a bit older and started working, then I was told, but you need to have a credit record. You need to have credit and debt in order to get things. Like, say, if I want to buy a house, I have to have debt. And I was always told that debt was kind of bad back in the day. So, what is a good credit score or good credit record? How do we build a good credit record? And I want to start with you, Farai.
Sorry, I just wanted to disagree with Daniel and Divine, respectfully, with the goal setting first before you save, just because what do you do if you're a person who doesn't know what they want yet? I'm at a stage in life where I'm not quite sure where I'm going. Where's my career going? Do I want to stay here? Where am I? If I want to build a house, am I going to build it here? Or I'm sort of in a stage in life. So there's people that are in a stage in life where they're not sure, but I feel like saying that you have to have a goal is sort of an excuse not to start. So for me, hearing that, I could be like, oh, so I can spend everything I have, and then until I have a goal, then I can start saving because I'm working towards something. So I would disagree and say, even if you don't I'm not disagree as such, but I'll just point out the fact that even if you don't have a goal yet, you can still start. It just means we will have to have an extra layer of discipline, and probably lock it out away somewhere, just because you can still do something with that money and go, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I'm going to still put money into it. But anyway, back to your credit records question. I think having a good credit score is important when you're borrowing. For me, I haven't really looked into credit just because of my status here in this country. I can't borrow money formally from the bank just because you have to be a citizen or a permanent resident. So there's only a certain amount of you can borrow, and it's very rare. So I always try and make sure that I stay away from credit cards, just because every time I go on LinkedIn or wherever, they always say, stay away from credit cards, stay away from debt, stay away from that. So so far, yeah, I haven't borrowed anything yet. Or even someone wants to, and I've also seen friends that use Afterpay. So I don't know if you guys have it. Do you guys have Afterpay in SA?
Never heard of it.
Oh, okay. So there's Afterpay where when you want something from like whatever shop, you can actually pay in installments. So you get the good and you pay over
we
time.
call it lay-by here. We call it lay-by.
Yeah. So okay, yeah. So Afterpay, a lot of people buy a lot of things through Afterpay, and because we're also in this social media era where we're trying to please people. So I think it's I've learned from friends that I have used a lot of Afterpay and I have huge debt. So it's also important to learn from other people's mistakes. But so far, just because of the rights that I have at this stage, I haven't been able to access those things, but it would be interesting to see what happens if I actually had access to that. But so far, that's as far as I can comment.
I actually saw a comment that said that lay-by isn't actually the same as Afterpay. So maybe later on you can, in another chat or whatever, you can maybe just come and elaborate a bit on that for us. But I'm gonna also now wanna hear more from Divine. How do you think that we can actually build a healthy credit record?
To be quite honest with you, it's something that I am still learning at the moment, so I cannot admit to be very knowledgeable on the matter. But all I can say is that I am not a fan of debt in whichever form it comes in, even if it is necessary for me to loan in the future. It's only because I have seen what debt can do. to people, and how it can really destroy plans and families. And that's why I try to avoid it by all means. But if you have to build up a credit score, at some point you are going to just have to be accountable with the type of money that you're borrowing, and the time within which you have to give it back. So I think it just goes back to having discipline again, and knowing exactly uh, when it is that you want to. Well, I don't really know how to answer that question, to be quite honest with you. I would actually want to ask you, how do you um how do you build up a good credit score, especially for young people our age? Yeah.
Mm. I think from my experience, I think a few years ago, I wanted to get the first thing on credit, which was literally just a contracted phone. And in order for me to have gotten that, I was told, no, you need to build a credit record. And I'm like, but I was always told to stay away from debt. So it was kind of a very contradicting thing against my beliefs, because I'm like, you must always have money, just buy things cash and stuff like that. But because I wanted to try out a new spectrum, I was told that no, you have to get into a little bit of debt, and we need to monitor that payment system so that we can see if we can trust you. Because I think that's where the healthy credit record comes in. They want to be able to see if they can actually trust you and trust that you will be paying them back. And I realized that because I hate debt so much, I went and opened up a clothing store, and for the limit that I had on my account, I would max it out. But I knew that, okay, I'm maxing it out with the intention of paying it back very fast. So what I would do is I'll pay it back in huge sums in each month until it is paid off. And I would literally limit myself to only paying it off for about 3 months. And I did that for like about a year, or 2 years, or 3 years. And I actually started noticing that they started considering that as being a healthy credit record, because now they're seeing that, hey, this person is actually reliable, they're actually responsible, so let us offer them more. And I think that's also where the danger comes in, because banks will always offer you more. Clothing accounts will always offer you more. When they see how responsible you become, they want to give you more money. And I think that's where we need to also draw the line and be like, hey, no, this is my limit. This is what I can do. But I'm gonna keep constant with this set for myself, because you can fall into a trap of taking on too much and getting yourself into bad debt. There's also a way you can actually monitor your credit record. I don't know if you've heard, they should pay me for this, but Clear Score. I mean, there's apps and stuff that you can use where you put in your details, you put in everything, and they can actually monitor whether you are in good credit or in bad credit. And I think that's also something that we need to learn as young adults early in our stage, and not just open up every account and all of those things, because you need to learn that this is going to go against my name. And a lot of times we just get ourselves into debt, don't know how to get ourselves out of it. And then later on, when we want to buy a car or when we want to buy a house, we are being denied by banks because of our bad credit history. So I think we need to get to a point now where we start small but start healthy. So it, like Divine said, that's where discipline comes in. You need to be really disciplined when you are going to go into this credit record life thing. You need to be extremely disciplined with that. But with that said, I know that a lot of us are learning these things as we are growing, but do you feel like we have been adequately prepared for this beforehand or not? Do you think we were just thrown into the deep end, Farai?
I do think we've been thrown into the deep end. I think our parents or relatives of schools, especially, I think schools, that's the big one, could do better at educating us, introducing subjects that help us be prepared for the real world. Because I think even just with general life skills, but I'll just stick with the preparedness for financial management. Schools could do a better job at giving us tangible skills and to be able to manage money. I didn't know about credit scores until I went to uni and learned about it, but that was just by chance because it was in a unit.
Yeah.
But what about people that want to actually borrow? They only find out when they get there. Things like tax. Didn't even know what tax returns were. I didn't know people got their tax back in Australia. I was like, what? I get my tax back? It was literally the happiest time of my life, just knowing that I get my tax back and there's something called a deduction. But also just knowing that tax is taken out of my pay before it's given to me. That was a bit of a shock. I'm like, oh, they're shortchanging me. But so I think schools and parents could do a lot better at making us prepared for real life situations and money and stuff. Like, for example, when you're a kid, you see bills coming in via mail. Parents should at least help us understand what those bills mean, what it looks like, what's an invoice, what's the numbers, what are the different numbers that are on there. It's something that you learn once you get a bill and you're like, oh, where's the payment, or because sometimes you get a summary of an invoice, you're like, what is this, and then you have to read through it and go, oh, this is what I've paid, this is, and just, yeah, I think parents could do a better job at doing that, but it just depends with the parents. If they're, it depends with them whether they're going to help you. I know some kids are very money savvy. When we were in uni, they knew everything about money, and I was just like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna, do what I do and, buy what I buy, and until I got into the situation of living by myself and having to pay bills and stuff like that. So yeah, that's just my view.
Yeah, we've been nearing the end of the show, and I really wish that we could continue with this, but I do know that we have to come to a close. But also, in closing, what is your closing point on this whole discussion, on this whole money thing? And I'm going to start with you, Daniel. What are your closing points?
Yeah. Okay. So, first of all, I would like to say that you have to be very committed to educating yourself. When we're talking about the kind of education that we got growing up, I think I was especially lucky because my parents were very open to discussing finance at home. But it's not always going to be like that for every family. And so you have to take on the personal responsibility to educate yourself, to learn about finance, to understand yourself, and to prioritize what is important. And I would also say that finance can be very tricky. And a lot of people's lives have been really thrown out of balance because of money. Money is a very important subject. It's hardly discussed in society as much as it should be. But we should engage in more conversations like this, interact with people, talk to financial advisors, talk to people in the finance world, let them educate you and learn from some of the ideas that they have. And finally, I would say I wanted to add a comment earlier, but I couldn't, about debt. Debt is like a two-edged sword. It can be good if you use it for the right purposes, and it can be very devastating if you're not careful with it. So if you're going into debt, make sure that it's something. In fact, I'd recommend that you go into debt for investment purposes. But if you have to go into debt at all, make sure it's something that you can handle, and make sure you don't make an habit of incurring debt. And so that's what I would like to say in closing today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Divine, your closing points?
First of all, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to actually share our thoughts and our experiences. I think that it was very enlightening, and we need more of these platforms, not just to create awareness, but to kind of create that community and remind people that they're not the only ones going through what they are going through, especially with regards to money. All that I could say with regards to preparedness, I was actually having a conversation with a friend one day, and he was telling me how he was a bit tired of us always putting the blame on people, putting the blame on our parents for never teaching us enough, putting the blame on schools on not like providing us with the knowledge as early as possible. But the reality is, at the end of the day, like Daniel said, we also have to educate ourselves. We are privileged to have access. We are privileged to have access to information at the tip of our fingers, and it is our responsibility to go and research about these things and not fall in the trap of only getting the knowledge when we get into trouble, because you need to have enough information when things are still steady, so that when the stormy rain comes, when the stormy life situations come, you are not shipwrecked, right? And it also goes back to community. And I think that not just schools, but us as a people, we need to stand up and actually aim towards educating others. And that also includes not just schools and at home, but it also includes churches. It also includes youth gatherings. People everywhere can learn about how to better manage their money if they are given an opportunity to ask the right questions. Sometimes the reason why we don't know anything about how to prepare well for a financial future is because we don't have the right questions to ask. And how can you ask the right questions if you are not placed in a position of curiosity? So in order to create that curiosity, we need platforms like this that allows people to ask the right questions. And I want to thank you for allowing us to do that today.
Thank you so much, Divine. But your closing points.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say thank you. It was really nice to be part of the panel with Daniel and Divine and you, Stefy. So much wisdom, just, learning, taking notes. I don't know if you saw me, but I was just like, oh, they shouldn't stop talking because I have to quickly jot down. But otherwise, yeah, I just wanted to say, there's heaps of tools. There's lots of apps around that help you manage money. And, if you're not disciplined, definitely get an accountability partner, as I've learned. Now I'm sharing what I've learned and just being like, yeah, accountability partners are really good, and good friends as well, good mentors, because if you're around people that don't help you, people with the same habits as you might not grow. So always always choose the right company to manage your finances. Surround yourself with people that want to save money. It helps a lot.
It does. Thank you so much to each and every single one of you. I think the points that everyone today can take away is have someone who holds you accountable when it comes to finances. Be extremely disciplined when it comes to that. Build healthy credit records for yourself, and also make sure that you are not drowning in debt and also not drowning in too much money that you feel the need to always spend. But yes, it has been an awesome show. It has been an amazing show. I've learned a lot, and I think everyone else has also learned. Please do make sure that these discussions are open up. Don't just be the one to always receive the information, but also be the one to share the information with your friends and those around you as well. Let us help educate each other with these topics. But that has been me, Stefy Jagger, all the way from Johannesburg. It has been an amazing chat. Thank you so much for joining us. Goodbye.